Hello, this is Julian with Coffee Reviews, and today we'll be reviewing the Estribi Natural Processed Panamanian Geisha from Corvus Coffee Roasters. And there's the tin right there. And we'll go ahead and show the artwork for this tin as well, although I do not feel it is quite as pretty as the artwork was for their Zorro tin. The blue and green was just a little bit more lively on the Zorro tin. Alright, Corvus, based out of Denver, Colorado, and you can either look at this as the second part of a Corvus Panamanian Geisha review series, or the fourth part of a Panamanian Geisha review series in general, as we reviewed the Zorro and Estribi from Manhattan as well. And the main reason for purchasing these two coffees was to kind of compare and contrast them alongside of Manhattan's Zorro and Estribi. And it's not really a surprise at this point, given that Panamanian Geishas are our favorite coffee, so it's really easy to convince us to purchase a lot of Panamanian Geisha coffees. This right here is day 18 of Corvus's Estribi. And they did include a brew guide on the information for this coffee as well, and they suggested a 16:1 water to coffee ratio, so that's what we went with. Brewed at 205 degrees Fahrenheit through the Chemex. Corvus is a light medium American for the roast profile, and let's discuss another Panamanian Geisha. Day 7, our first impression, and we did comment on the Corvus Zorro video that we tried these two alongside each other, and we did enjoy this one a little bit more, and we were getting a really distinct and clear tropical fruit sweetness from it. A super sugary cup of coffee. Starts off a bit red fruit forward before cooling off into a strong fruit punch. Wonderful first impression for this coffee. Day 9, we were picking up a little bit more. Initially starts off as a caramelized sugar before getting a fair bit of heavy florals to this cup as well, cooling off into a very nicely balanced fruit. Lovely cup of coffee. Day 10, very punchy. At this point, we would even describe it as red Kool-Aid in abundance. Wonderfully sweet, exceptionally balanced, and an impressive cup of coffee all around. Not surprising, our flavor profile. Day 14, it continued to yield extremely positive results, slightly more lively and fruity compared to the Zorro from Corvus. There was a heavier bit of tart berries on this day to go along a really pronounced floral. Most dominant thing we were still getting was this super punchy component, and it was a very red cup of coffee. Day 16 and our final impression, and at this time we were getting quite a bit of different berry fruits, and they were really tart berries, so we could describe them as a number of things, perhaps red currants, red cranberries. I believe that that's what they have listed on here as the flavor note is cranberry, and then some unripened strawberry, raspberry, quite a bit of these red berries as a whole, and some very pronounced florals, a super sweet cup of coffee in general. All right, let's go ahead and put up the tasting wheel so you can see what we were getting. And there are a lot of similarities to Manhattan's Estribi tasting wheel as well, and those being the acidity at level 4, and we must discuss the two most notable things on here though, the sweetness and berry fruit at level 5. We've been harping on the berry fruit in this cup of coffee, so that's not really surprising, and we've been harping on the sweetness of this cup of coffee, so that's not surprising, but it doesn't have quite the lasting finish that Manhattan's Estribi did, so that's why that's toned down a little bit. The florals at a level 4 I'm not necessarily happy with, considering I put the Zorro florals at a level 4, and this one definitely has a higher floral, so either push this one up to 5 or push the Zorro down to a level 3, but they're definitely not the same. That being said, the slight bit of extras that we're getting, a slight bit of saltiness, slight bit of spice, and a slight bit of bitter smokiness, yeah, they're definitely in this cup of coffee as well. So this one felt a little bit more consistent than Corvus's Zorro did, and as a result, I think I just like the tasting wheel, the way that this tasting wheel looks a little better, but yeah, not too much else worth discussing on this tasting wheel. All right, overall thoughts and impressions of this coffee. Again, really impressed, but I guess it's not really surprising given how much I love Panamanian Geishas. This one was definitely better than Corvus's Zorro, and this one's a lot closer to Manhattan's Estribi than I think I had expected going into it, as this one honestly at times felt a little bit more my flavor profile than Manhattan's Estribi did, so it's kind of pushing it, and it would be kind of difficult to tell which one I necessarily preferred, as I think it does kind of depend on the day. I do tend to prefer the lighter roasted profile of Manhattan as a whole, so that might be a kind of distinguishing factor between these two cups of coffee, but truth be told, they are pretty close, so I gotta give Corvus huge credit for how they did on this coffee as well. They did an amazing job with both of their Panamanian Geishas, so props to Corvus for their work. And just like with the Corvus Zorro, we didn't necessarily have somebody we would suggest this coffee to, mostly because these were limited edition runs, so you can't purchase these coffees anymore anyway. So I think we'll just kind of give a overall summary and impression of these Panamanian Geishas. I think it just does kind of come down to preference, as they all had a lot of complexity, depth, layering to them, and at the end of the day, it just kind of depended on which one was the most your flavor profile, given that Corvus's Zoro was this really abundant citrus fruit, and don't necessarily love the citrus fruit, and both of these both of these Estribis from Manhattan and Corvus were really acidic coffees and don't necessarily tend to prefer the acidity in coffees. It's not a surprise that it was Manhattan Zoro that was our standout coffee for us, as it did have those fruity pebble flavors and was such an impressive coffee that it still remains our second favorite coffee of the year at this point. But I think we're going to leave this review at that, as yeah, it's been probably a little lengthy for just kind of discussing Panamanian Geishas. But if you have had a chance to try this coffee, again, anything from Corvus, would love to know your thoughts and impressions of them. If you're enjoying the content, give this video a like and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. This right here has been a review of the Estribi natural processed Panamanian Geisha from Corvus Coffee Roasters. Thank you for watching.